For 40 years, this man could not tell anyone what he did. Not his friends, not his children, not even his wife. There is a war story locked inside him. One his own government ordered him to bury because 40 years earlier, alone, he had done something no pilot in history had survived. It began as a routine patrol. 4 Navy jets off the carrier Oriskany, a blizzard, and the freezing sea of Japan. A secret intelligence team picked up a warning. 7 Soviet fighters inbound. Then 2 of his wingmen were forced to turn back until only Royce Williams and 1 other climbed on toward the MiGs. 7 Soviet MiG-15s, the best fighters in the world. They dived. They fired first. Williams was ordered to disengage. He answered, "I am engaged." Then he turned into them. 1 MiG down, trailing smoke. Then another. Then another. A cannon shell tore through his cockpit, 6 inches from his life. Out of fuel, out of ammunition. Now he had to bring a shattered jet home through the storm, alone. He survived. He shot down 4, and then they ordered him to erase it for 40 years. This is the battle America pretended never happened. The morning of November 18th, 1952, off the coast of North Korea, just 80 miles from the Soviet border, 3 American carriers launched their strike. Williams flew the first raid that morning without trouble. By afternoon, he was airborne again, this time to guard the fleet. 4 Panthers climbed into a blizzard, 500 feet of cloud, a wall of snow. They flew on instruments, blind, toward the open sea. Then the carrier called. Unknown aircraft, inbound from the north, 80 miles out and closing. The 4 pilots broke through the clouds at 12,000 feet into a freezing, blinding blue sky, and Williams looked up. High above him, 7 contrails, 7 Soviet MiG-15s, and they were already turning toward the fleet. The MiGs split apart and dove, 4 of them, straight down out of the sun, firing. Williams hauled into a hard climbing turn and fired. The lead MiG staggered, trailing smoke, and fell away. His wingman chased the crippled jet down, and just like that, Williams was alone, 1 man against 6. The carrier ordered him to break off, to run, but there was no running now. "I am engaged," he answered, and he turned back into them. The MiG was faster. It could climb higher. So Williams did the only thing that kept him alive. He never climbed. He just turned, firing at anything that crossed his sights. Again and again, a MiG locked onto his tail, and each time, at the last second, he wrenched the Panther around so hard the MiG couldn't hold him. They overshot every time. He fired until his guns ran dry. 760 rounds. A second MiG went down, then a third, smoking. For 35 minutes, 1 Panther held off the best the Soviet Union could send. And then they hit him. A cannon shell tore into his wing, and the jet shuddered, riddled, barely flying. With nothing left to fight with, Williams rolled over and dove straight down into the storm, praying the clouds would hide him. He fell into the clouds, and the firing stopped. Dogfight was over. But Royce Williams's fight to get home had only just begun. The cannon shell had destroyed his hydraulics. No rudder, no ailerons, no flaps. The Panther could barely turn. It could only pitch gently up and down. He thought about ejecting, but the sea below was freezing, the storm endless. No one would reach him in time, so he made his choice. He stayed with the jet. His wingman flew beside him now, just watching, certain he was about to watch Williams die, already dreading the moment he'd have to face Williams' young wife. And then, as he limped toward the fleet, his own ships opened fire. To the gunners in the storm, a lone, damaged jet was just another MiG. For a few terrible seconds, America was trying to kill the man who just saved it. The guns fell silent. But Williams couldn't turn to line up the deck, so the captain of the Oriskany did the only thing left. He turned the entire carrier. He couldn't slow down. Below 170 knots, the jet would fall out of the sky, so he came in fast, almost twice the safe speed, wrestling a dying aircraft onto a pitching deck, and somehow he caught the third wire. 263 holes were counted in his Panther. The plane that brought him through everything was stripped for parts and pushed into the sea, as if it had never flown at all, as if none of it had ever happened. Royce Williams had just done what no American pilot ever had, survived a battle against the Soviet Union and won. By every measure, he should have come home a hero. Instead, the gun camera film from his guns, the proof of everything he'd done, was confiscated by a brand new agency called the NSA. And then, quietly, it was lost. The official report was rewritten. A few days later, Williams was called to the office of a 3-star admiral. He was about to be told the truth, and then ordered to bury it forever. The MiGs had not been North Korean, they were Soviet, and American intelligence had been secretly listening to them the whole time. To admit the battle happened would expose how deeply the US could hear inside the Soviet Union. There was more. The two superpowers were inching toward a ceasefire in Korea. 4 Soviet jets, shot down by 1 American, could have shattered it. It could have started a third world war. So the admiral gave him a direct order. Tell no one. Not his squadron, not his friends. The greatest thing Royce Williams would ever do was now a secret he was forbidden to share. On paper, the 4 kills became 1. A false report went to Washington. He was handed a Silver Star for a battle that, officially, had barely happened. And he said nothing. He carried it through everything that came after, through a long career, through a marriage, through children who would grow up never knowing. In his own words, decades later, I didn't talk to anybody, including my wife. And so Royce Williams went back to being an ordinary Navy pilot. He flew on through the rest of Korea, then, a decade later, through Vietnam, over 100 more combat missions, in newer, faster jets. He rose to command. He trained a new generation of pilots. To everyone who knew him, Royce Williams was a fine officer with a long and honorable career. None of them knew about the 35 minutes that defined him. He had married his childhood sweetheart, Camilla, the girl from across the aisle in Sunday school. They built a life, a family, decades together. And in all those years, he never told her either. Think of that. Every anniversary, every quiet dinner, every someone asked about the war, he had the greatest story a pilot could tell, and he simply let it pass. Maybe it was easier because no one was really asking. Korea was the forgotten war. As Williams himself put it, nobody cared much about heroes from Korea. In 1980, after 37 years in uniform, Captain Royce Williams retired. He settled near San Diego, a grandfather now, with a quiet house and a long marriage. Then, in the 1990s, the world began to change. The Soviet Union fell. Old records started to surface. The truth began slowly to leak out. But even then, Royce Williams said nothing. He didn't think anyone would care. So picture him there, an old man at his kitchen table, a loving wife who had no idea, children who had grown up never knowing, and inside him, untouched for 40 years, the single greatest thing he had ever done, waiting for someone, finally, to ask. The world was ready to ask. As the old Soviet records opened and the secret stamps came off, Royce Williams was told he could speak. After half a century, he could finally tell the truth. And the first people who deserved to hear it, his wife, Cami, his family, the man they'd loved for a lifetime, had carried this alone. And the records proved every word. The Soviets themselves had logged the losses. 4 of their MiGs downed by a single American Panther. The battle Washington had erased had been real all along. Once the truth was out, others took up his cause. Fellow veterans, senators, people who refused to let the most extraordinary dogfight of the Cold War stay forgotten. They had a name for it: Operation Just Reward. In 2023, more than 70 years after that freezing morning, the Navy finally acted. His Silver Star was upgraded to the Navy Cross, the second highest award for valor the Navy can give. The record was being rewritten, this time with the truth. But his country wasn't finished. In 2026, at 100 years old, Royce Williams received a phone call. It was the President of the United States. And so, before the entire nation, the secret that had been buried for a lifetime was spoken aloud at the highest level. A 100-year-old man who for 40 years could not tell his own wife what he'd done was honored at last in front of the whole country. The plane that saved him was long gone, pushed into the sea. The order that silenced him had outlived the men who gave it, but Royce Williams was still here, and the truth finally belonged to him. Not a secret anymore, just a story that everyone at last was ready to hear. To this day, no other American pilot has ever matched what Royce Williams did in those 35 minutes. 4 enemy jets downed alone in a single fight. It remains the only direct battle between American and Soviet pilots of the entire Cold War, and for half a century, almost no one knew it happened. And how did the man himself describe the most harrowing battle in naval aviation history? In his own words, you'd be surprised. It was almost like a training mission. I was pretty stable. 4 Soviet pilots did not come home that day. Young men, like him, flying for their country. Royce Williams never celebrated their deaths. He only ever spoke of doing his duty. Some stories are buried by war, some by politics, and some by a quiet man simply keeping his word. Royce Williams, South Dakota farm boy, fighter pilot, husband, a recognized American hero. Royce Williams kept the greatest thing he ever did a secret for 40 years, until his country was finally ready to listen. Every pilot we've followed carried something the cockpit couldn't hold. A secret, a country left behind, promise to bring someone home. If this man fought the Soviet Union alone and told no one, wait until you meet the pilot who baked a cake to escape it, and the American crew who risked everything to pull one man out of enemy mountains. Both stories are on the screen now. Clash of Empires tells the true stories history almost erased. Subscribe, hit like, and we'll fly the next one together.